edition of Dungeons & Dragons is just around the corner, and it had me thinking literally yesterday. I was sat there thinking I should play more Dungeons & Dragons, or at least some sort of tabletop RPG. That's if I can find time between Magic and New Year, New Army. Yeah, I'm building Astra Militarum. I'll be uploading on the Warhammer channel soon, I promise. And I backed Trench Crusade, and I'm looking forward to actually learning that at some point. I gotta find time for it. I'm a father now, so time is not infinite. It wasn't infinite before, but it feels much less so infinite now. And I haven't played a game of Age of Sigmar in a month either. But I used to regularly play Dungeons & Dragons. Like every single Monday for 4 to 5 years, I sat down to roll dice and level up my character and go through 2 whole campaigns. It got me to think about all those iconic D&D things, you know, things that I associate with not only the game itself, all the intertwined media like Baldur's Gate, from Beholders to Dragons, to my Oathsworn Paladin that I played through the entirety of 4th edition, from first level to, what was it, 25, 30? Vorpal swords, magic missiles, and slot machines. Slot machines? Yes, slot machines. Celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2024, Dungeons & Dragons has captivated fans across generations and become a cultural phenomenon. As part of Hasbro's year-long celebration of this milestone, Games Global will harness the world's greatest role-playing game, all capitalized, to create an immersive, high-engagement slot experience, giving operators a chance to tap into the global fan base. Wizards of the Coast, via Hasbro, are partnering up with Games Global. If you don't know who Games Global are, they are a company that make online slot machine stuff. They are an iGaming company. And this is the bit that made me want to make a video about it. Do you know what iGaming is? It's online gambling. It's branded as iGaming by all the media that covers it and the companies involved with it, but it's just internet gambling. Like, iGambling is right there. iGaming is so obviously obfuscation of what you're fucking doing. It's like the most obvious porky pie I've ever heard. I didn't know about it until I started reading about this announcement, which happened late in December of last year. Up and off, right? That's why it took so long to cover it. And let's be really upfront and honest here, right? I'm not gonna clutch some pearls. I'm not even strictly speaking anti-gambling. I gambled some money on blackjack when I was last in Vegas. I bought my wife a scratch card at Christmas that smelled like chocolates. Yeah, I'm English, right? I'm from Britain. So our relationship with gambling is very different to what you have in America. Sports betting has never been illegal in this country as far as I know. Casinos exist in most cities. Like England and the UK's attitude towards gambling is very laissez-faire and laid back compared to that of the United States. That said, I'm not saying that our attitude as a country is correct towards it. Our age of consent is 16 years old, and I think that's too fucking young because people are fucking stupid at that age. Just because it's legal in some country somewhere doesn't make it morally correct or even just like philosophically correct. Morally, philosophically, kind of the same thing. What I'm saying is, although my attitude towards gambling is way more relaxed than most of my American audience seems to have it, I'm still not saying that having a gambling betting shop, or 5 of them on every street corner, is not bad for your overall country's well-being. There are problems with gambling in the UK like there are in many countries. I think Europe's worst country for it might be Germany. I've heard some horror stories about Germany and its relationship with gambling. The first release in this collaboration with Games Global will be D&D Tale of Riches, developed by Neon Valley Studios. Creators of such illustrious and well-received games as Genie's Arabian Riches, Multi-Chase, Pineapple Pop, and Atlantean Treasures Mega Moolah, all of which are games where you press a button to spin some circles and maybe one of them has a hold mechanic. I actually played a sample of one of these fucking things. I was going to record it for the video, but it was so fucking boring anyway. Over on the Games Global website, and you basically just click buttons and it spins, and that's it. There was no hold functionality that I associate with the slot machines that used to exist in the corner of my local Chinese shop that my dad used to play on when I was a kid picking up our Friday night Chinese. They are just literally like hopefully triggering some endorphin rush of you maybe winning money or not winning money as some fucking wheels spin. And like licensed deals aren't unusual. Games Global have a Tomb Raider game, for example. They have a Playboy game. Having your brand engage with this as a way to just make a load of extra money is not unusual. And with those 2 brands, they're obviously things aimed at a younger audience than the typical slot machine audience. I'll talk more about that in a second. So Dungeons & Dragons here is something that's helping these gaming companies, these iGaming companies, these gambling online casino, digital casino companies to target younger people. And that already makes it feel, at the very minimum, a little bit icky, right? My wonder is, will this just show up on some prominent casino websites where people who are logging on who've got nerdier or like fantasy-loving tendencies will be more inclined to spend money on the D&D slot machine than, say, the Playboy slot machine, and that'll just be that? Or will this be a thing that Dungeons & Dragons, like social media accounts or Wizards of the Coast actually promote? I think it's going to be the former more than the latter. And if we flip over to what people probably know me more for here with Magic the Gathering, will we see a Magic the Gathering slot machine? I don't fucking think so. I would go as far as to say we will never see that unless Hasbro is seriously in fucking trouble and need to make a quick amount of cash. In essence, because of the gambling associations with booster packs, or shall I say, Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro are avoiding that wording as much as possible. They really want this stuff to be looked at in depth, go to courts and such to compare booster packs to loot boxes or gambling, because that could cause regulation that Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro really fucking don't want. And thus, I think putting the word gambling or slot machine or even iGaming, if we're gonna like lie about it a little bit to people's faces, putting that anywhere near the Magic brand is just putting fucking a lit match near fuel. I don't think Wizards of the Coast will ever risk that. Except, like I said, if Hasbro are really in trouble. And Hasbro are actually kind of really in trouble, right? If you don't know, the company is struggling massively. They made huge losses selling off their media companies back in 2023, which I covered on the channel. Their toy brands never really recovered after the dip, after the boom from the COVID spending spree that was. And every time I hear about D&D personally myself, as a nerd who's, you know, tangentially attached to these spheres of tabletop gaming and card gaming, I only hear about the scandals where they've pissed off people, the open agreement license thing that they fucked up, big creators making their own tabletop games to move away from Wizards of the Coast because of the toxic relationship they have. And really the only golden goose at the company that's making huge money all the time, I believe, is part of the digital gaming. Baldur's Gate is making that much money from the license agreement as far as I understand it, but Monopoly Go is a money maker as far as I understand it. And of course, Wizards of the Coast making like $1 billion through primarily Magic the Gathering, but a little bit of D&D as well. So if Hasbro are desperate and maybe perhaps are selling off Wizards of the Coast further down the line, maybe they will run those risks, run that gamble, if you will, of associating Magic with gambling and then selling off Wizards before that erupts and explodes and causes a tanking of the valuation of the company as they have to deal with regulation around pack rules and loot boxes and such. Because companies have been taken to court across the fucking planet for loot box issues in like digital games like EA titles and similar, because of how they are predatory and they prey upon the children that play them. Of course, there are arguments that booster packs are not gambling and are not loot boxes, but those arguments may not actually stand up when under heavy scrutiny or in a court. But let's say Hasbro aren't in enough trouble to have to sell off Wizards of the Coast. I just don't think they're going to poison the golden goose by putting gambling anywhere near the nose of Magic the Gathering. However, D&D's a whole different story. They've done some blind box like dice shit in the past for D&D. There's been a few bits of like, you know, random loot boxy stuff, but on the whole, Dungeons & Dragons doesn't utilize any sort of like, you know, gacha mechanic, if you will, when it comes to getting your stuff. You're more just buying your books or your licenses to use those book stuff on D&D Beyond or whatever the fuck it's called now. It's mainly not a, you know, a certain chance to get your Vorpal sword in a pack. You're just buying access to the rules to play them on their clients. So in that sense, it's less risky. But why would Wizards of the Coast via Hasbro go down this route now when they've always kind of avoided this in the past, especially with the dodginess of associating it anywhere near Magic? Well, it's part of that desperation. Hasbro are looking to claw at ways to make money out of an audience that they have no fucking shits about, right? Again, I'm not anti-gambling, but I am aware of the issue with it, where huge amounts of the money are made primarily by just the whales and the people that have problems in the gambling sphere. And physical location gambling is largely based around older people. In a 2024 survey attributed to the Statista Research Department, the average age of a physical casino guest in the US is 41.9, which shows an increasingly downward trend as the industry actually tries to engage with younger consumers, and they're slowly but surely achieving it as that age creeps down year on year. And Akers, a leading loyalty and technology expert in the casino and gambling industry, estimates that 80% of casino gaming revenue is generated by slot machines on physical premises. And in a study by Game Changing Technologies, 70% of slot revenue is from players aged over 55. I go to those stats to explain that slot machines are for old people, right? And I know those are for like physical locations, but I think it gives us an idea of like where slots are positioned in the mentality of the people that like to gamble. Slots are not a sexy young person thing. And there is almost a certainty that this collaboration will be exclusively online and in digital games, but I think that info is useful regardless. In the very same blog from Akers, aimed at business-to-business sales by Akers, you know, want to sell a loyalty scheme to new casinos, it talks of ensuring that physical casinos offer digital, mobile, usable gambling options to captivate younger Gen Zers lounging by the pool who've come for the entire experience and not just for the gambling. The blog itself, just to be clear, defines Gen Zers as 10 to 25. It's safe to assume they aren't aiming at 10-year-olds, but it does paint a very gross picture, which I think is just inevitable when you talk about gambling and young people. It always begins to paint a gross picture, even if they aren't literally, although okay, if they aren't admitting to aiming at 10-year-olds, this stuff does aim for younger people. And look, to be clear, Acres, or whatever the fuck they're called, are just a company that I stumbled across when I was looking for statistics around ages, and then got into the weeds of reading their blog posts and seeing this like kind of gross way they want to aim at kids. They're not the company partnering with Wizards of the Coast. However, the research noted in their blog post is interesting and relevant, and I do think this is indicative of how the industry itself is just generally set up and moving towards looking for that younger audience. I must admit that saying that everybody involved in the iGaming and gambling industries, it's so funny that they're called two different things. It is not fair to say they're all the same, right? If one YouTuber is promoting gambling, it doesn't mean that I promote gambling. I completely and utterly understand that. I just want to make that very clear as we went into the end of this video. One of the wider issues in this space right now is that younger and younger audiences are being introduced to gambling and shown how cool and fun it is by content creators and streamers. It's part of the reason Kick was founded. So it's sad to see D&D start to sell itself into this growing issue. Dungeons & Dragons is a teen-friendly brand with quite a low average player age now. I couldn't find an actual statistic for it because Hasbro and Wizards don't really know, but since the growth from Critical Role and Stranger Things and similar, I think the average age has probably actually crept down. After school clubs are more prevalent than they ever have been. I was recently playing a Warhammer tournament at a game store locally to me, and the D&D group was coming in, and they were just after school kids and stuff, just coming in to, I say after school kids, it was the weekend, but it was younger kids coming in to play in groups. There was an older DM and one other older player, and then, you know, like teens and such. Dungeons & Dragons, much like the Tomb Raider that I mentioned earlier, is the kind of brand that these companies want to buy into because they hope it will decrease the average age of their user and help them to tap into and monetize that Gen Z or millennial audience that they struggle with when their current average user is 40. I actually struggle to find the average age of an online gambler. I didn't spend that long looking, if I'm honest. Maybe someone can help me in the comments. Do my job for me. I did find the UK statistics for it. This graph shows what percentage of each age group gambled at some point in the last 4 weeks in Great Britain, and it's kind of alarming numbers. That 42% of 45 to 54-year-olds and 42% of 55 to 64-year-olds did some form of online gambling in the last 4 weeks. But as you can see from the graph, that section that I just read out, the 42% there, that's not what they want to aim for, right? Those people will get older. Those people will become pensioners, have less disposable income, may not be the kind of people that they want to be tapping into. They need to tap into this younger bracket here, the 18 to 24, the 25 to 34, and that's what brands like Tomb Raider and Dungeons & Dragons do for them. I think largely anyone just logging into like an online digital app to spend a little bit of money to do some sports betting or some slot gambling or digital poker or blackjack or whatever is not inherently bad. However, there are many issues surrounding this like sort of like, people are calling it a epidemic. Drew Gooden recently did a very good video about the online epidemic, as he calls it. He talks about the predatory nature of how the apps go after you, the push notifications that they send you, the way they try to get you to be a habitual user, the way they lure you in. I'm not going to reiterate all of his points here because it's kind of pointless. I think the video is pretty great. I mean, it's got more video views than this channel will get in the next 4 months, but either way, you should go watch it. The point I'm getting at by pointing all that stuff out is that, like, this is a brand aimed at younger people. I'm not pearl clutching, but I do think that online companies using this stuff to appeal more to younger audiences is something that we have to be hyper aware of. At the moment, we have like gambling sponsorship spawning its own streaming websites, so all the dodgiest fucking streamers you know on Twitch that have been banned can move over to Kick so they can continue doing their slot machine bullshit to lure children into gambling. CoffeeZilla's just done a video on online gambling with Counter-Strike casinos, where kids as young as like 12 to 14 are gambling on knife skins and AWP skins and shit in Counter-Strike. There is a problem here, right? And I just think it probably would be better if Magic the Gathering and Dungeons & Dragons were not associated with that shit. I wouldn't describe it as a line being crossed, as I've seen some people say, but I will say that it does feel like a new low. It is plumbing the depths of dodgy shit to make money with no tangible benefit to those who love or associate or buy into the brand in the first place. And it looks extra bad when your company's floundering and your game's got a reputational issue with all the fucking scandals you keep having with your creators and your open licenses and such. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you like the stuff that I make and you want to help support the channel, you can help support it via Patreon via the link in the description below. For just $2 a month, you can help to support the channel more than monetized views ever would. And it helps to stop me from taking gambling sponsorships and moving over to Kick for streaming, or shilling crypto on social media, or taking a sponsorship from a payday loan company. None of those things will be happening on this channel. So yeah, give me your fucking money. I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.